You are driving home. The conversation is over. The room is behind you. But the silence inside your car is deafening, replaced only by the loud, humiliating echo of your own voice in your head. You feel a physical knot in your stomach, a deep, sinking realization. You talked too much. Again. You think back to the interaction. Someone asked a simple question. Someone questioned your decision. Or maybe you just had to say no to a request. A simple, one-word answer would have been enough. But you didn't stop there. You kept going. You justified your choice. You laid out your personal reasons. You exposed your insecurities. You kept talking and talking, filling the empty space, desperately trying to make them understand, trying to make them agree with you. And as you spoke, you saw it in their eyes. Not respect, not understanding, pity, and a quiet, subtle loss of power. You just handed them the keys to your mind. And you have absolutely no idea why you keep doing it. This is core wisdom. If you are tired of bleeding out your power through your own words, if you are ready to master the most dangerous weapon in the human arsenal, you are in the right place. Subscribe. We build the fortress together. The modern world has sold you a devastating lie about communication. They told you that vulnerability is always a virtue. They told you that if you just explain your side of the story clearly enough, people will respect your boundaries. They told you that over-communicating makes you a good, honest, transparent person. They lied. Look closely at what actually happens when you over-explain yourself. When you decline an invitation and immediately launch into a 5-minute apology about how busy you are, how stressed you are, and how bad you feel about it. When you make a decision for your own life, to quit a job, to end a relationship, to change your path, and you spend hours trying to convince your family and friends that you are making the right choice. You think you are just being polite. You think you are sharing information. You think you are building a bridge of understanding. You are not. You are begging. You are begging for validation. Every time you voluntarily offer an unprompted explanation for your own life choices, you are subconsciously transmitting a message of weakness. You are telling the other person, "I do not trust my own judgment. Please tell me it is okay that I did this." You are placing them on a throne, and you are kneeling before it, offering your reasons up for their approval. And human nature is deeply, ruthlessly predatory when it senses weakness. When you explain yourself, you invite debate. You invite negotiation. You give the other person the raw material they need to dismantle your boundaries. You are practically handing them the ammunition to shoot down your decisions. If you say, "No, I will not be there," that is a wall. It is solid. It is built of stone. It cannot be climbed. But if you say, "No, I cannot be there because I am really tired and I have this project and my head hurts," you just threw them a rope. Now they can say, "Oh, you can rest tomorrow," or "It will only take an hour." You built a boundary and then you immediately tore it down because you were terrified of their disapproval. This is not friendliness. This is a trauma response. Psychologists call it fawning. It is a defense mechanism born in childhood. When you were young, your survival depended on keeping the adults around you happy. If they were angry, you were in danger. So you learned to anticipate their moods. You learned to explain away your mistakes before they could punish you. You learned to constantly justify your existence to avoid conflict. You grew up. The adults lost their power over you, but you kept the habit. You are still living like a frightened child, trying to appease a world that does not actually care about your reasons. The people you are so desperately trying to convince, they are not listening to your logic. They are listening to your tone. And your tone reeks of insecurity. Imagine your words as a blade, a razor-sharp sword forged in the furnace of your mind. A weak man, a frightened man, does not know how to hold a sword. When he feels threatened, when he feels the uncomfortable, heavy silence of social pressure, he panics. He draws the blade and swings it wildly in every direction. He talks, he rambles, he spills his secrets, he explains his motives. He thinks he is defending himself, but he is only exhausting his own energy. He is showing the enemy exactly how desperate he is, and he usually ends up cutting himself. The hangover of words is a terrible sickness. It is the realization that you cannot take back what you just gave away. You cannot unspeak your insecurities. You traded your mystery for a cheap, fleeting moment of validation. But a sovereign? A king? A king knows that the true power of a blade is not in the frantic swing. The true power is in the threat. The power lies in keeping the blade sheathed. When a sovereign makes a decree, he does not gather the peasants and explain his emotional state. He does not justify his logic. He speaks the truth. He delivers the decision, and he lets the weight of his words settle into the earth. He does not rush to fill the void. He embraces the silence. You are terrified of silence. When a conversation pauses, when a negotiation stalls, you feel a massive psychological pressure to fill the void. You feel like you owe the world an endless stream of context about who you are and why you do what you do. You cannot stand the tension of an unanswered question. But you owe them nothing. Your reasons belong to you. Your logic belongs to you. Your life belongs to you. 2,000 years ago, the greatest strategists, emperors, and philosophers understood this completely. They knew that a man who cannot control his tongue cannot control his empire. They understood that silence is not just the absence of noise. Silence is a physical pressure. Silence is a weapon of mass psychological influence. And you have been leaving it completely untouched, choosing instead to babble your way into submission. Consider the courts of the ancient world. Consider the throne room. A peasant enters the room and speaks 1,000 words. He explains his journey. He justifies his requests. He details his hardships. He fills the air with desperate noise because he has no actual power. He must rely on the sheer volume of his words to convince the room that he matters. The king sits in silence. He listens. He observes. And when he finally speaks, it is a single, unbreakable sentence. Why? Because true power does not need an alibi. Robert Greene, in his brutal distillation of human power dynamics, named this as one of the ultimate laws of strategy. Always say less than necessary. When you speak, you become common. You become predictable. You reveal your hand. You show the world exactly how your mind works, what you fear, and what you desire. But when you are silent, you become a mirror. Think about the last time you were in a negotiation or a tense argument, and the other person simply stopped talking and looked at you. What happened to your heart rate? What happened to your mind? You panicked. The silence felt heavy. It felt like a physical weight pressing against your chest. And to escape that agonizing pressure, you started talking. You started offering concessions. You filled the void with your own insecurities. You negotiated against yourself. You did their work for them. This is the psychological reality of the void. Human beings are utterly terrified of the unknown. When you do not explain yourself, you remain an unknown variable. You become unpredictable, and people respect what they cannot predict. They revere what they cannot fully understand. The moment you start explaining why you did something, you shrink. You step down from the pedestal of your own sovereignty, and you enter the muddy arena of debate. You are essentially saying, "Here are my reasons. Please audit them. Please tell me if they are good enough." They are good enough because you decided them. That is the only audit required. Marcus Aurelius ruled the entire Roman Empire. He faced treason, plague, and endless war. Look at his private journals, the Meditations. He does not write pages of frantic justifications for his political decisions. He writes commands to himself. He observes the world, makes a judgment, and moves forward. He understood that the mind must be a fortress. When you over-explain, you are lowering the drawbridge of your fortress and inviting the invading army to inspect your walls. You are giving them a detailed map of your structural weaknesses. If you explain that you cannot attend a meeting because you are feeling overwhelmed and your anxiety is high, you think you are building empathy. You think you are being authentic. But the Machiavellian truth of human nature is far colder. The world is not a therapy session. They are not feeling empathy. They are logging a vulnerability. They now know your breaking point. They now know the exact type of pressure required to make you fold. You just handed them the blade, handle first. Lao Tzu wrote, "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." The person who is truly secure in their path does not need the applause or the permission of the crowd. They do not need to constantly narrate their life. Narration is for the insecure. Narration is a desperate plea for an audience to validate a performance. Stop performing. Look at how you communicate at work. You make a mistake. Instead of simply saying, "I made an error, I will correct it immediately," you send a massive paragraph detailing the sequence of events. You blame the software. You explain how tired you were. You apologize profusely. You look weak. You look like a liability. Look at how you communicate in your relationships. Your partner crosses a line. You do not just say, "Do not do that again." You write a dissertation. You explain your childhood trauma. You explain exactly why it triggered you. You over-intellectualize the pain. You are begging them to care about your boundary instead of simply enforcing it. A boundary that requires an essay to defend is not a boundary. It is a suggestion. True boundaries do not require an explanation. They only require enforcement. And the most terrifying, the most effective enforcement is absolute silence. When someone disrespects you, and you do not explode in a rage of explanation. When you simply look at them, hold their gaze, and let the silence stretch. You strip them of all their power. They expected a reaction. They expected a frantic defense. They wanted you to swing your sword blindly. Instead, they hit a wall of cold, unbothered iron. They are forced to sit in the awkward, humiliating echo of their own disrespect. They are forced to confront themselves because you refused to give them a reaction to hide behind. Silence is not passive. Silence is the most aggressive move on the board. But it requires immense internal discipline. Your ego will scream at you to defend yourself. Your ego will demand that you set the record straight. Your ego will tell you that if you do not explain your side of the story, they will think you are stupid or weak or wrong. Let them think whatever they want. Their opinion of you is none of your business. Their misunderstanding of your motives is their problem, not yours. You are not the public relations manager for your own life. You must kill the urge to be universally understood. It is a loser's game. You will spend your entire life running from person to person, adjusting your story, softening your edges, trying to make everyone comfortable with the way you choose to live. And in the end, they still will not understand you. But you will have exhausted yourself completely, so stop trying. Take back your energy. Take back your mystery. Take back your blade. When you stop explaining yourself, the dynamic of every relationship in your life fundamentally shifts. You stop being the subject awaiting judgment, and you become the judge. When they demand a reason for your absence, give them nothing. "I cannot make it." That is a complete sentence. It does not require a footnote. When they question your career path, your relationship choices, or your daily routine, do not launch into a defensive presentation. Look at them calmly and say, "This is what works for me." and then shut your mouth. Watch what happens. Watch them scramble to fill the silence. Watch them project their own insecurities onto your quiet confidence. They will reveal exactly who they are, simply because you refused to give them a target to attack. This is the alchemy of power. You are turning their aggression into their own humiliation, using nothing but the void. But you must be prepared for the backlash. The people who are used to walking all over your over-explained boundaries will not like the new version of you. They will try to provoke you. They will try to drag you back down into the mud of endless debate. Do not take the bait. Did someone completely misunderstand your motives? Good. Their ignorance is not your responsibility to cure. Are they deeply uncomfortable because you refuse to explain yourself? Good. Let them swim in that discomfort. It belongs to them, not you. Did they call you cold, arrogant, or distant? Good. A fortress is supposed to feel cold to an invading army. Did you lose a connection because you stopped justifying your existence to them? Good. You did not lose a friend. You filtered out a parasite that was feeding on your insecurity. Every time you choose silence over a frantic explanation, you forge another layer of iron around your mind. You train your nervous system to tolerate the tension of being misunderstood. And once you no longer fear being misunderstood, you can no longer be manipulated. You become immune to guilt trips. You become immune to peer pressure. You become an absolute sovereign of your own reality. The blade stays in the scabbard. You do not need to swing it wildly to prove that it is sharp. The simple fact that you possess it and have the discipline to withhold it is terrifying enough. Tomorrow morning, you will step out into the arena. Someone will challenge a boundary. Someone will question a decision. Someone will demand a reason that they have no right to ask for. You will feel the old panic rise in your chest. You will feel the desperate, childish urge to open your mouth, to swing the blade, to spill your secrets, to make them understand. Stop. Breathe. Keep the sword sheathed. Look them directly in the eye. Give them a cold, polite smile. And let the heavy, crushing weight of your silence do the work. You are no longer the frightened child begging for validation. You are the king, and the king does not explain himself to the crowd. This is core wisdom. If you have the courage to walk this path, subscribe. Leave the herd behind.